Set number 2, Muhodo versus SortOf. Once again, we're here in the open qualifiers of Elite Classic 3. And this time around, Muhodo, he doesn't have the Lancaster or the Knights Templar available. On the other side, we have a Lancaster pick. It was the final pick of the draft for SortOf. No ban or pick of the Knights Templar, though. So we're kicking things off with, a classic. Two players with very similar mentalities out here. Chinese versus Jushi on Cliffside.
It almost feels I have this kind of thought process on like these the way the variant civs play out is that like with JD and French, it almost feels like a mirror match of sorts. And with Chinese and Zushis, again, feels like it's got like elements of a mirror match to it. But obviously these two can play very differently as well. China can obviously leverage a lot more eco early, and Zushi can be a lot more aggressive early. But this will be a fun one. These are both good choices on this map too. I think both have a lot of versatility to them. So should have a classic matchup ahead of us here for game number 1.
Yeah, Cliffside, Dry Arabia, Lipany, 3 super classic maps. I mean, the theme of Elite Classic is to go for a lot of very traditional maps, but let's be real. When it comes to Lipany, Dry Arabia, and Cliffside, these are not just kind of traditional maps. They're truly some of the most meta and most classic maps out there. Cliffside is really the only one that, is a slightly newer, but even that is a map that has been around for a long time, and it's basically a map that's being featured in every single event.
Yeah, and I think it's because it has that mix of like choke points, which some people like and don't like. So it feels like kind of closed, but it's also got elements of just being a traditional bland map. It reminds me. I mean, like Lipany, I think of a lot too. Lipany can have a lot of interesting spawns, but Cliffside's got a very standard kind of set of spawning. Those middle choke points end up being the big confluences where everyone kind of groups together and fights over. And it's a good map for people who want to boom a little bit as well. Very easy to kind of secure your own side.
It certainly feels that way. It's one of those 1-2 punch style maps, though. First 15-20 minutes, it's actually an aggressive map. Sure, you have those gaps, but those are not walled off, and you have quite a few of those gaps, so you can definitely flank around and be aggressive. At the same time, once you hit that 20-minute mark, once the walls start coming up, it suddenly becomes like a very slow-paced and grindy late-game map. So one thing I like about Cliffside is that the initial portion of the game plays out super different from the, second half of the game, especially if you go 20 minutes and beyond.
Yeah, it definitely is a map that feels like it can have multiple phases of the game. Sometimes games are just always high octane the entire time. Sometimes you get those it slows down and everyone kind of goes home and eco booms up a little bit. This map definitely lends itself to that, where you'll see some poking and prodding off the start, and then like you said, like once the walls come up, those choke points become really crucial, and then we start seeing those. There's a high likelihood we could see some big siege battles. I bet we'll see lots of Nest of Bees fighting both sides. Things will probably grind down unless someone does something incredibly silly.
Well. 1.5 minutes.
I know. I'm excited. I'm excited to get in.
Me too. Let's talk about the remaining maps, though.
Yeah. Oh, the maps? Yeah.
Lipany, Dry Arabia, 2 classics. Muhodo has Rus out there, always a powerhouse civilization. Ayyubids, a lot of flexibility, and then Jeanne d'Arc. On the other side, you do have SortOf with the Byzantines and the Malians, 2 civilizations that are always considered to be S tier when it comes to tournament performance. Really, the flexibility they have, I talked about this in the first series when it comes to the Malians. The passive resource income is such a huge boost. Those kinds of things make both the civilizations extremely powerful, so I wonder if SortOf will even tap into the House of Lancaster in this series. It's very possible he's going to skip it altogether.
Yeah, I could see him maybe, like looking at like Lipany, maybe Lipany be the place you'd go for it, but then I feel like Byzantines or Malians would be equally, if not better, on that map. So yeah, I wonder. I was just thinking that same thought. Like, do we even see Lancaster this series or not? Because the other 2 civs play wonderfully on either map. And then looking for Muhodo, Jeanne d'Arc and Ayyubids available, as well as Rus. So Dry Arabia could be a great Rus pick. Ayyubids can do equally well on the Lipany. Jeanne d'Arc could do good on Dry Arabia or Lipany. These are all solid civs that could be good on either of these 2 really, really classic maps, like you put it. I'm liking the drafts too from both these players. They both have, I think, drafted pretty well for this series.
Yeah, Well, I mean, well is a relative term, of course, because some of that
Yeah.
comes down to preferences. But here we go, game number 1. SortOf versus Muhodo. We're kicking things off on a Cliffside, and we have SortOf with the green playing as Jushi, and to the north, Muhodo with the Chinese in red.
Yeah, it's always fun to see the two Chinese civs going at it. Obviously, Zushi's Legacy, a variant of China. We see them off to the races, scouting for their sheep, getting them all as they can. Oftentimes on this one, you got to go out in the wings to find all the sheep on this map. So it's usually not the greatest idea to go straight down the center. We see they both taken their own respective sides, although SortOf hasn't gathered any that I can see just yet. You got a couple there. So, going around the side here. No, this is one of those interesting maps where you never. Some maps spawn a very similar way every time. Where like Gorge usually spawns the same exact way. Like you know where you are. Once you see your TC on the map, you know where your opponent is at without even knowing and seeing it, right? Whereas I feel like Cliffside, the permutations go in every direction, so you never quite know what map you're getting. I find it somewhat disorienting right off the bat, trying to figure out where to go and where the flanks are. We see this time the cliffs obviously spanning from east to west as the two scouts say hello and goodbye to each other, looking for their sheep.
Yeah, I don't know what to expect in early game from these two civilizations, to be fair. I can see this being a boom fiesta in either direction. I wonder if some of this is going to be mind games. Are you comfortable with a boom fiesta? Or are you thinking, okay, if this goes late game, I don't like my position, I'll try to make something happen in early game? Is it something your opponent is prepared for? So it's going to be interesting to see the dynamics of this game. One thing to highlight, though, is that both players spawned with a rather exposed gold mine. So if you want to play aggressive, that could be a primary target for either player.
Yeah, for sure. Both golds fairly forward. I'm thinking long term too for Zushi's. Food is always the big kicker, right? Like they're going great, and then once they expunge and use all their food, what then? Because food gets pretty scarce on this map pretty quickly once you eat up, the outside deer, the boar. I wonder if we even see maybe a pro scouts play on this map. I know with the recent changes that's been kind of well nerfed. I wonder if at what point, I wonder where the make or break point is to if you go for it or not. We do see the Meditations Garden coming up. It's going to clip the gold of berries right there. I wonder if it clips, look, it clips the stone right there as well. Looks like it's just within the hitbox of that, so I bet they'll get some stone for it.
Yeah, I'm sure he placed it such
palace.
that it's in the hitbox. Players are so good at doing that.
Yeah. Now, do you go with one TC song if you're playing China? Do you go for the full boom? I'm trying to wonder like what the game plan is. I feel like either civ could do so much. Both these civs obviously very versatile in what they can accomplish and what kind of game they want to play.
Good question. I think I honestly think that this matchup does not come down to the civilizations. I think this comes down to the players and their mentalities.
Yeah.
Either of these civilizations can be used for early game aggression. Either works as a super late game civ. So it really comes down to whether either of these players is willing to play late game, and whether any of these players, any of these two players, is just saying, okay, I don't want this game to drag. I just want to win or lose quickly. I guess we're going to find out very soon.
No, Zushi is a nice pick. There's obviously you see a lot of sheep on this map. Maybe not everyone at home would know this, but it always spawns 2 extra sheep that are usually close to the town centers. So there's a little bit higher average of map for food on this map than say Dry Arabia. So I'm thinking like Zushi, they could sustain more of an aggressive play if they wanted to. Not that 400 something food, 500 food goes that far, but it can. We do see pro scouts, however, being clicked up for SortOf. So we already know off the bat what kind of game we're going to get as he plays for the bane of many people's existence this last patch or so. Pro scouts coming out. He's only got the one scout right now, though. Does he have any plan to build any more? I mean, he could slow trickle them in, I suppose, but he's going to want more.
Yeah,
There we
it's
go.
going to be Pro Scouts. Now,
Pro Scouts both ways.
Um, Pro Scouts, there was a bit of a nerf for the Pro Scouts. The cost was increased, so it's not as obvious as it was before, but still the return of investment is just huge on that. Gives you a lot of safe food. You can supervise the mill that you're dropping off to, which is obviously an advantage as well for the Chinese. And I guess we're getting our answers. Both players will just play slow and steady. We might see a couple of horsemen just to harass each other's Pro Scouts. But I think this looks to me like a game that's not going to have a lot of action before Castle Age.
I agree. It looks like both players are kind of doing the old meta of last season and just going to grab the sheep, or grab the deer, excuse me. And we see already a little bit of a skirmish as he has to drop one. And a deer carcass is one for the effort as the scouts say, no, this is our turf now. And we see the trickle in of deer as venison is on the menu today. Spears coming out again. It's kind of fun to see both sides picking the same upgrades at the same time. Looks like SortOf has been just a couple seconds faster on some of these upgrades. He's getting the upgrade to the Spearman, getting him into Feudal Age. Same with Muhodo. A wheelbarrow coming in as well for SortOf. Looks like it's just going to be an eco fest as we prepare ourselves. And I agree, we're not going to see a whole lot until Castle Age. Horsemen harassing the scout. They're tanky enough, even still, that this isn't a huge concern. I bet this one could get in easily enough. He's going to drop it off, though, and keep him safe. Tricky thing with scouts is they do regenerate that health slowly. It will trickle back up over time.
It really comes down to just like slowing down your opponent at this point. Pro players know well enough to just drop off the carcass and then flee. The real thing is, again, how much can you disrupt that food gathering operation? How many carcasses can you secure in total? Because keep in mind, it's a race for the 4 deer packs that are out there on the map. If you can chip into the opponent's deer packs a little, that is actually a decent win.
And it looks like that's exactly what SortOf is doing on the northwest side. That deer pack, he has taken 1 or 2, it looks like. Obviously down here in the south, Muhodo is trying to get some as well. See some Grand Theft venison fighting over the carcasses. You know, it's almost a shame we don't have like a, and it'd be really difficult to ever do this, but like a way to count up the deer packs, like a deer pack counter as to who's gotten more by their TC or not. But I think right now SortOf has taken more from what I've seen.
Yeah, it's always difficult to gauge at this point. Especially because sometimes we say, oh yeah, this player has gotten more. But then, you know, you look at the overall tally and it turns out that the other one has the advantage. Now, one thing I'm looking at here is that Muhodo has a bit of a head start going into Castle Age here. He's about to click up, whereas SortOf is actually a little lower on food. There's a quite substantial difference in the food income. Part of the reason why SortOf is a little delayed is because he is investing into some palace guards, though, something that he can do as Jushi in Feudal. But those are pretty expensive, especially on the food cost. That's going to slow him down a little. He's going to try to push the gold mine, but the gold is well protected by the tower.
I wonder if he was hoping to catch Muhodo before Castle Age, but at 8.5 minutes in, it's already a little too late for that. We see the astronomical clock tower already coming up in lightning speed. However, SortOf still gathering food behind this, still getting his deer. He did get wheelbarrow. That is another thing he has economically over Muhodo, but obviously with the Imperial officials, it feels like it almost evens out. There's a slight villager difference too. Chinese with still in Tang Dynasty, but up a couple villagers, 36-32. I haven't had any killed. I wonder if there was maybe a delay in some villager production from SortOf.
Yeah, I think most of this is the investment into the palace guards. Now, the good news is that he is going to have some of those available for Castle, and he can get the upgrades in immediately. But at the same time, Chinese don't take a long time to catch up in military production, so having a little head start in producing the palace guards is not going to make a major difference, because Muhodo can just supervise his own production.
Exactly. Lots of gold coming in for SortOf. Looks like he's definitely going to be leaning into that production of those heavy units here. Next thing to consider too is relic play, right? We both have a religious unit for both players now, looking to grab the relics. I feel like the relic spawn, hard to say who got favored on this one. They're kind of interestingly split across the map. First Lancer going on to the archers. This is a good little fight for SortOf. He's going to be able to clean these 3 up easily. And they're going to have to fall back. Yeah, there's one archer down. Good fights from SortOf. He's taking some good engagements. He probably could have finished off that horseman right there, but the spear enough to deter him. He heads back home.
Yeah, so SortOf definitely has the tempo advantage with the aggression so far. Muhodo has been very defensive up until this point. He does have the spears coming out, though, and SortOf is going to have to pull back the Lancers. But now, as much as we've talked about the race towards the deer carcasses, now we're looking at a race towards the relics. And right now, Muhodo has 1 relic coming back home. The rest are unclaimed so far. SortOf has the mobility advantage with his initial Lancers, so now both sides are looking to intercept monks. It's 4 Lancers against only 2. SortOf has the advantage in potentially intercepting some of them. That could be a couple of conversions.
Whoa, yeah. Nope, caught it just in time. That was close. That was close. The Sheldon monk doing his fun, unique wololo. I kind of wish more monks had unique wololos. I think that'd be kind of fun. I think it's a little unfair. Zushi gets the fun one and no one else does. Meanwhile, that monk, however, despite his really epic booming voice, is going to go down. This one, however, is going to be definitely won by SortOf as he secures that one and kills a monk in the process. Those spears are becoming kind of pesky, though. He's got some palace guards, and they are quick, but feels like those spears are definitely worth their value here. But regardless, Muhodo has to back up as the sheer numbers are just too much from SortOf.
Yeah, he needs to defend this gold mine here. Veterans, he just kicked in for the spears, though, and you still have to be cautious if you're SortOf. Those are expensive Lancers, but it looks like he's undeterred. He's going to push in here, looking for a couple of villager kills. He is going to get 2 kills so far, but he's trading expensive knights for this. I don't know if the value is necessarily there.
The idle time's nice, but Muhodo has a bit of a, gold treasure chest at home. He's gonna be able to clean that up. I don't know if it was worth it or not. We'll have to see how then in the long run. And it feels kind of like a wash.
Yeah, it's tricky because at the end of the day, the villager count is dead even. Relic count kind of even-ish, although Muhodo is bringing back a second one home. 4 villager kills is nice and a lot of idle time forced as well, but those are expensive Lancers to lose too.
I mean, that villager count evening up is good because SortOf was behind. So killing those 4, I think, was definitely very helpful. We see getting another relic here. Right now it's 1-1. I think they're pretty dead even. See the Barbican? No, that's not the Barbican. Excuse me. That's the... no, it is the Barbican. Coming up right there on the gold to secure that spot. That's definitely going to help keep that gold vein going. But eventually, you got to think about external gold sources because Zushi's going to need to, go out on the map and grab some more. Still a good way to shut the front door as these Lancers kind of playing cat and mouse back and forth over the middle of the map. Back at home, SortOf just kind of, cruising. I can never say this one, but the tower coming up here.
Jiangnan Tower. That's what.
Jiangnan Tower. There we go. Got myself tongue-tied there. Coming up, as well as the veterancy for the spears finally clicking in for SortOf as well. Lancers looking to do a raid in the back wood line here, getting a Vil kill for their effort. Gonna cruise on by. And a big fight of Lancers on Lancers coming in with spears coming into flank behind. Good engagement by SortOf. Chasing away those, getting a couple more hits. Might get another one right there on the left. Just gets away.
The Lancer count is escalating very rapidly for SortOf here, and I feel like the tempo advantage is starting to show. He's got 3 Sacred Sites, or 3 relics, as opposed to just 2, or would be 2 for Muhodo. 9 Lancers against 5. Spearmen once again take a decent fight here, and there are some crossbows on the back line as well. SortOf needs to be careful. This is not necessarily a fight he wants to take.
No, he needs to back off here, and he does. Maybe a little later than we would have liked to see if you want to try and keep those things alive. Spearmen, man, chasing down. They are giving no ground away, keeping chase on the Lancers. Another one goes down. Those crossbows as the back line is a really good call by Muhodo, because the DPS you get from that is just going to really help as the spears and other Lancers kind of act as a bulwark up front to defend and attack. All things considered, though, it feels pretty even. I feel like Muhodo's got a little more in the bank at the moment. A lot of upgrades queued up for SortOf. At this point, though, Muhodo needs to consider whenever the venison runs out is when he's going to be at his most vulnerable. Once he runs out of food, whenever that is when he's going to need to consider what he does long term. We do see Wheelbarrow finally coming in for Muhodo as well. Maybe thinking about having to go out on those external resources. And there, yeah, you see the deer just about used up. And so now that food income a minute's going to start dipping. Man, it feels like they're all across the map. Left, right, center. Feels like they're just duking it out all across. Sacred Site's coming under control of SortOf. That extra gold will help, you know, on top of having an extra relic over his opponent. So he'll be getting a nice little boost in gold production. Lots of crossbows. Lots of crossbows coming in from Muhodo. We do see some Jukunu coming in from SortOf as well. Maybe in anticipation of those crossbows.
Yeah, it's going to be pivotal for both players. When you have such a... Oh boy, that's a big push. And now SortOf is taking the villager lead. 11 kills in total. I think that has been the difference between the two players here. They've both been poking and prodding, but Muhodo was playing a lot more defensive, and over time SortOf started to dictate the tempo of the game. Now he's walling off his side, making sure that no counterattacks will hit him. And at the same time, he was looking for opportunities to hit the villagers off. Muhodo finally gets away with a decent chunk.
Yeah, those villager kills. And again, this is at a crucial time where Muhodo is out of food at home. And so as he starts expanding into the back of his base on those berries, having a bunch of lances in the back is not going to help. But we see a couple go down right immediately as the spears just tap him. And if Muhodo can hold the ground back here, he can maybe make this up a little bit. But he's going to need to secure the backside. And those lances are just so fast, and off they go, running away from the engagement to live to raid another day. It just feels like Muhodo's in a precarious spot, though. Lancers, you know, trying to get into the walls now of SortOf. If he can get some damage back done, he can keep this game even. He needs to do damage back to SortOf, who is up both a relic and a sacred site. And a number of vills, really.
Yeah, it's the vills that really make the difference, I think. Eco upgrades are pretty close. Relics 3-2 is, I mean, that's the best split that you can have when you're losing on the relics. I think the biggest problem right now for Muhodo is the lack of opportunities to counterattack. Walls are complete on the side of SortOf, and it's just so difficult to find any opportunities to retaliate, really.
Yeah, it feels like SortOf's really securing his corner. And, you know, China does not need a lot of real estate to boom. You can see he hasn't even taken the whole half. He's just taking his, like, little 1/8 of the map down there. And that's all he's going to need. I mean, you can see the granary transition was coming up. You do see sacred sites now being taken for Muhodo. This game is... It definitely feels like it's edging towards SortOf having an advantage, but I would not say it's necessarily a winning advantage just yet, as the first Nest of Bees gets a nice shot on those crossbows. Not enough to kill any, but the trickle damage does matter, as he sees a chance to take the middle of the map as his.
Yeah, I love the walls on the left side for Muhodo, but I think he needs to do something with the right side as well. It's not an easy wall off, it's a wide open area. But I just feel like as long as that right side is open, SortOf is going to use that again and again. Now, luckily for Muhodo, SortOf has pivoted into a full infantry comp, so there is not much in terms of lancers that can hit the eco. And I mean, the villager count is still fairly close, so this game is definitely far from being over, especially if these Nest of Bees can make a difference, because that is not something that SortOf has an answer to right now.
Yeah, he doesn't have a great counter for the Nest of Bees. If they can just find a good place to poke, Muhodo needs to do damage. He is starting to lag behind. He's lagging behind eco-wise, because, you know, SortOf has the Imperial officials. He's got the relic advantage. He's got, you know, they've each got a sacred site at least now. The Nest of Bees militarily is kind of where Muhodo could do some damage, but it's 74-43. There's a lot of units that SortOf has, but a good hit from now 3 Nest of Bees on the field, that could swing things in Muhodo's favor enough. We do see some Lancers coming in for another raid behind. Sneaking around, it's spotted out immediately. Into the village as they go, looking for a kill. That's an Imperial official they're trying to get. Meanwhile, first village goes down on the other side. Muhodo attacking while being attacked. 2 IOs go down. There goes a Lancer, but that's a pretty good trade in my opinion for SortOf. I think the production.
It is. At the same time, he needs to deal with this aggression going into his base, and there's still nothing out there. He's trying to pivot into Palace Guards. He is facing 19 crossbows though, and that's 4 Nest of Bees. That's no joke. One of them is kind of out in the open. That could be picked off easily. Nice splits by SortOf though. Makes it difficult for the Nest of Bees to do a lot of damage with one volley.
Yeah, tough to get one good shot off. Trying to rain hellfire down upon them, but getting some good shots in though. But man, losing those is such a it takes a while to get those back. Losing 2 of the 4, and another one out to pop right now. I don't know if this was a good. I don't think this was a good fight from Muhodo, as he's getting cleaned up by what's left of Sort of. The numerical advantage is too great for the nest of bees. Couldn't quite coordinate their shots together to get the knockout punch, and Muhodo is left running for the hills. And suddenly I'm starting to feel like Muhodo's in a really bad spot. The one he was looking to deal a knockout punch, and instead feels like he got kind of knocked out.
It certainly feels that way.
Now the follow-up matters though, so Sort of needs to make sure he can follow us up. He's got the advantage for now, but if Muhodo can remass, he's got a shot to get back in this, but he's down to Miko. He's down a lot of military.
Muhodo has a lot of stone.
All the advantage.
I believe Muhodo will try to drop a keep in the front to stall this and maybe go for a second TC. He's down by he's down by 16 vills because he lost 20. He never killed a villager from SortOf. So that push was scary from Muhodo, but at the same time, SortOf held it nicely. And when it's all said and done, no eco damage was done by Muhodo.
Yeah, and behind this, SortOf is now 2 TC Song. So his villager rate is just going to skyrocket. He's going to reach 120 before we know it. We're going to blink and it's going to get there. Already 71 to 55. Obviously, that major difference being the 20 villagers. But with an extra town center now and a full granary transition behind this, SortOf is about to get completely online. And any worries that Zhu Shi would run out of food is gone. At this point, Muhodo just needs to boom, right? Like, that's his only option, is to, like, almost 3 TC boom is his only hope. But by the time he gets that online, I feel like SortOf is going to just push right on in this base. So it feels like Muhodo's running out of options really quick.
I just don't know what he's trying to do with the stone. He finally dropped the keep, but it took a long time to drop that keep. So, I mean, that keep needs to go up. Regardless, I don't even know where that keep is going up. Did they just sell it? No, he just went down.
He's just full sending it.
Okay.
He is just going to make a statement. I don't know if that's... I mean, the other army's out of position. He could get this up in time, potentially. But what is it going to get him, though, long term, is my question. I mean, it's going to be annoying, but, like, SortOf can just go around.
Oh, no, and there's an overchop.
Oh, no.
There's an overchop on the wood line. And even if that castle goes up, it denies absolutely nothing on the other side. This has got to be the game here. And I love the patience of SortOf. He didn't attack until he got close, hoping that his opponent will not notice. Muhodo was paying attention, but it doesn't change anything. So many villagers go down.
Waits till he sees the whites of their eyes before shooting, and just gets a bunch of 28 villager kills, as SortOf just walks right in the base like he owns it. Muhodo with his keep, you know, Pyrrhic victory, I suppose. He's got a lot of siege, but he just is completely out of position for this, as his eco is running for their lives in the back, not even sure where to go anymore.
And SortOf is getting back onto the knights. I talked about this. The right side is wide open, and the crossbows are struggling to chase villagers. The knights will not. Muhodo is actually lucky that he gets out of there alive, but he's just running circles around his own base here because he's got nowhere left to go.
Well, and the idle time is already damage enough, right? I mean, if a villager's not working, it might as well be dead. I mean, obviously it's nice that it can go back to work. You don't lose the full value. But at this point, if they're just idle for the rest of the game, they're essentially dead either way. And we see, does that even get done? No! The wall is still open with a little hole outside. Back door remains open. Couldn't get it up in time. And the window is still there. He can just walk in the base.
There's just nowhere to go. SortOf knows fully well that, you know, if you leave this gold mine, he's going to go to the other one, and he is just searching for those targets. 40 villagers down now for Muhodo, and I feel like he's just delaying the inevitable. I just do not see him coming back from this. He's just outnumbered. It's 150, 170 population against 87. It's a 2-to-1 differential, really.
I'm honestly amazed that SortOf is only at 88 vills. I would have thought he'd be, like, way higher by this point, but I don't think it matters at this point. He's got double the eco. And this, I don't always love calling GG super early, but in this case, feels like this is kind of GG. That's a lot of siege, but I don't know what it's going to do to save him.
It's not. I think the problem now for Muhodo is that he's got a very slow and sluggish army. And he's just going to get torn apart from multiple sides. He's facing 15 Lancers as well. And he only has 12 crossbows. 15 Lancers versus 12 Crossbows, especially when you also have a bunch of Palace Guards out there, it's not gonna be enough to hold off those Lancers and Palace Guards from the Springles and Nest of Bees. I think he's hoping that he can push into the enemy base and maybe snipe landmarks, but I just don't see that coming together for him.
Yeah, Nest of Bees trying to do something, but it's just delaying the inevitable, it feels like. I think at this point, Muhodo, I think, has realized maybe it's game up. I feel like he feels like he's still trying to do something here. Like his base is just getting overrun though. So is he just absorbing the loss at this point, do you think? Or is he, I don't know if there's really an avenue. He's kind of bringing things in, like he can maybe swing this game around. Like he's getting aggressive, those Nest of Bees. I bet once these get popped, he's probably going to call it.
I mean, yeah, I think he was hoping that he can pull a miracle here, taking out landmarks, but that just feels like a long shot. And again, we always need to highlight, players don't necessarily, well, we see everything. We see the eco and army differential. He might not have seen the full extent of this difference, and if you just show him what we see in the balance of power, he would tap out immediately, I feel.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, you know you've lost 64 vills and you just killed your first 28 minutes in the game. And there we see, yeah, GG called as he gets overrun. Tough game from Muhodo. It felt very even there for a while. And the difference was, I think he just took that really bad fight with those Nest of Bees. Like, took the decisive fight that he thought would deal a knockout punch and ended up getting punched right back.
Interesting game here. I feel like, again, that push from Muhodo came down to just like not having a follow-up. If he had a little bit more juice, I guess, a little bit more frontline troops, the Nest of Bees could have been much more impactful. But you cannot take it away from SortOf. He's done a really good job preserving his economy. He lost one villager in this entire game.
And that was at the very end. Yep.
At the same time, he was leveraging openings. He was playing a very opportunistic game. And every single time Muhodo gave him something, he took it, and over time that just started to snowball out of control.
Yeah, he did a really good job of just poking and prodding in all directions, raiding where he could. I mean, 64 villager deaths at the end. Incredible. And this is exactly, I'm really glad we have this on replay. Shout out to the production team. This is exactly the moment I was thinking, you know, when he was dealing with those spears, he immediately sent the 2 Lancers onto the villagers and started getting those first villager kills. He got 2 or 3 right here, I believe. And you know, it didn't, at first we were like wondering, is that a worthwhile trade? Turns out maybe it was, because the delay, because not only is he killing those vills, looks like he got 3 there, he also delayed the gold income.
Oh, it's the idle time as
Muhodo,
well.
if you look at it, Muhodo was right about, had a lot of eco and gold right there. That might have delayed his castle age a little bit even. Look at those spears. Yeah,
I think this is the fight. This is really the fight that this came down to. The eco differential wasn't huge, and at the same time, while this fight was happening, villagers were lost from Muhodo. So I wonder if, you know, some of that eco differential is because he was focused on this fight, and then once he lost this fight and he lost some villagers back at home, there was just no way of recovering. And some of this is just a lack of frontline troops, the lack of troops to shield these Nest of Bees a little longer.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. You mentioned that he didn't have much of a front line here, and that really was the difference. He had no way of keeping those Nest of Bees alive. That he needs to keep those in the back and using them in coordination with whatever's up front to really thin out the ranks, and he just didn't have any front line. And so the spears and crossbows that he had just kind of got shredded to pieces as the Nest of Bees had nowhere to go. Well, a good game 1. Really, I mean, again, credit to SortOf. That was a very clean game. I mean, he played exceptionally well. I mean, almost by the book, right? Like to the letter, where he just had the perfect time. Right when he ran out of his deer, he moved into the granary transition, had the bigger military, was able to kind of poke and prod. Just a really well played game. And Muhodo, just a couple of mistakes that just ended up being very costly.
But in we go to Dry Arabia, and this time around, very different civilizations, fundamentally different civilizations. So we're not going to see that semi-mirror that we've seen in game number 1. Rus, always a powerful civilization, but at the same time, Malians, I feel like to this day, I think Malians is one of the best competitive civilizations, because it really feels like if you're not pushing them actively at the beginning of the game, things will snowball out of control by mid-castle.
Yeah, it feels like, I mean, snowballing being the perfect term there. It gets so difficult, and once it hits that make or break point, it's just over. There's a point of no return that comes pretty quick when they get that full cow boom going. When they get, all those passive goal generating, Malians are a scary pick, and like you mentioned, really really effective on the tournament scene. You don't always see them on ladder too much, I feel like, but in tournaments at this high level of play, they are consistently one of the best civs. But we shouldn't discount Roos either. Roos is also, I think, both a fan favorite and a tournament favorite. Roos has been effective for a very long time in this game, and especially on Dry Arabia, where there's just a lot of options. I mean, there's so many things that they can do too.
I wonder how aggressive Muhodo is going to play, because one thing that you can do with the Roos is be aggressive in Feudal with the Knights and dictate the tempo of the game. I think that was a component missing from Muhodo in this series, in the first game. SortOf was always the one dictating the tempo of the game. He had the cavalry advantage at the beginning of the game, and then it always felt like Muhodo was just playing defensive. This time around, he has the chance to turn that around, but he needs to leverage that to its full extent, because again, if you let SortOf just boom away with this with the Malians, it's going to be all over.
Yeah, and we've seen that Muhodo is more than happy to play the eco game, right? He's more than happy to do what he needs to do to set himself up and then play that castle timing. Now, on Dry Arabia, it's pretty open, and Roos, with their speed and potentially with the early Knights, there's definitely a play. I definitely think we can see a feudal engagement and a lot. The question, I guess, then is, does Roos go for pro scouts and take all the deer? I mean, because I don't know that Malians are going to be... Malians could also go for a pro scout play as well, and could, get their warrior scouts out there. It's an interesting matchup. But again, I do think there's kind of a timer that Muhodo is just already inherently put on with SortOf using Malians.
Well, into game number 2, we go SortOf with the Malians in green to the north, and to the south it is Muhodo playing as the red Roos. Once again, nice low cosplay colors with the Roos out there. And again, we talked about this in the pregame. I think one of the big questions is how aggressive you're going to play with the Roos. One thing that's going to help a lot for SortOf is that his gold mine is tucked away at the back, and he's got both of his forests spawning at the front. So there's a bit of a natural barrier that helps protecting his base.
I've seen this go both ways. I've seen some high-level players. I think it was maybe a Beastie game I watched where this spawn at first looked really good for Beastie, and I think eventually the wood in the front actually ended up being a curse, because if you can sit on that wood line and deny Malian wood, it gets really hard for them to produce units. So there's a chance where that might seem really nice right now, but it could be kind of tricky. It could swing the other way if Muhodo can be aggressive enough. But again, that's to be seen if Muhodo can capitalize on that, because the bag gold is pretty handy as far as passive gold generation goes. I feel like when you play the Civ with like Roos and you pick red and it just matches so well, you almost deserve like an extra villager just for that. It just looks so good. Like playing Byzantines in purple or Ottomans in green. It just belongs, it just belongs that way. Or HRE in yellow. And we see the first pit mine being built, a couple of houses.
Yeah, again, I think we know what SortOf is going to do. I think the question is how Muhodo is going to approach this. Looking at his base layout, I don't fancy this at all. I think that big opening to the front is not something I'm happy about. The gold mines offset to the side as well could be a problem later on. But for now, I wonder if he's going to try to play aggressive, because based on the previous game, I think a game that drags out is not something that favors him. So I wonder if he's going to go super aggressive. You mentioned this. The wood lines on the front could also be a curse. I wonder if we're going to see a Feudal Age aggression with some tower rush potentially from Muhodo.
I think it could be really effective if it's done right. And again, you're on a timer kind of either way. Like the back gold, you're not going to be able to do a lot. There's 3 back golds essentially. I mean, 1 in the very corner even, which again, for most Malians, I think that's just perfect. It's excellent. It's what you'd want. But with both woods in the front, I worry. If you get a good one of those towers from the Roos up on there, and you can start denying that, it's gonna feel like the Midas touch, right? You think it's great at first, and then it ends up being the absolute worst curse in the world. We do see the Golden Gate coming up for Muhodo. I wonder if we're gonna get pro scouts out of this. The deer are pretty tucked away back on SortOf's side as well. We can see the two hunting cabins. The standard opening now for Roos, getting that passive gold generation. 17 on that one and 18 on that one. Both pretty good.
Yeah, very slow-paced beginning here. It's always funny because once you have some late-game action, you just have to reset yourself going back into Dark Age and taking your time.
Well, we've had a lot of games that have had a lot of action in the beginning too. In the first series especially, we had some Dark Age shenanigans. Here, it's just just some sheep scouting. I guess the biggest thing we can look at is maybe how many houses that sort of built. Not quite sure. I think it looks like the full 6 from what I'm seeing. Yep, went for the full 6 houses around. It's pretty standard stuff. Yeah, it used to be kind of considered really greedy, which is kind of funny. That used to be like a really greedy play to go for all 6, but I think 7 even. That's quite a bit. But I guess when it's in the back right there, I mean, why not? It's in a good spot.
It's going to be a stable opening for SortOf, so it's probably going to be a Warrior Scouts build. Interesting idea. I don't think you go Sofas directly here. Sofa direct opening is not something that your eco is good enough for at the beginning. Usually it's something that you pivot into once you get to late Feudal, early Castle. At the same time, looks like Muhodo is also going for Pro Scouts here, so we're going to repeat the same thing that we had in the previous game. One difference is that Warrior Scouts will be able to fight off the enemy Scouts from Muhodo.
Yeah, that could be an interesting play, and I wonder if he'll try and go for the Scouts, to go for Pro Scouts as well. And we do, actually, as I say that, he clicks up on it. So both players, again, going for the Pro Scouts, and there's the Warrior Scouts clicked as well. Be pretty interesting, because both deer packs, both sets of deer packs are very on the edge of the map. So I kind of wonder, like, they're just going to each get their own... Muhodo trying to herd the venison in. He's got all of his scouts right there ready to go, just kind of pushing them in. But they're so far on the edge of the map, like that's a long way for SortOf to go to even contest that. And likewise for Muhodo for SortOf's deer. Those are some of the most back deer I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, this is tricky for SortOf because Muhodo has it all clustered up and it's all rather close to his base. Now, the fact that it's clustered up also means that Muhodo cannot just sneak out and sneak in a couple of carcasses if he's losing, and I think that's what's going to happen here. He's getting pushed back by the Warrior Scouts, and at the same time, both of his deer packs are on top of one another, so once these Warrior Scouts arrive from SortOf, I don't think Muhodo can really take any from his own side.
Yeah, I feel like they're both going to just get their own packs and call it a day. Like, if one of them was in the middle of the map, like Badlands always has 2 packs that are in the middle. But in this instance, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen such a back spawn of deer.
Whoa, okay. This is huge for Muhodo, though. Again, if SortOf camps this position, this could have been a lot worse for Muhodo, so Muhodo being able to bring in at least 1 full deer pack is definitely a win here.
Yeah, it only takes like a couple deer to even make the money back from Pro Scouts. And at this point, if you get the full pack, if you get both your packs, it's basically you're even. There's no way that like Muhodo can go steal some of SortOf's, right? Like they're a little further back. I just don't see how he's gonna. I think they're both gonna end up with their own packs.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the likely outcome, and it's not a terrible proposition for either. But at the same time, you always want a little more. I think you really start becoming happy with your Warrior Scouts or Pro Scouts play when you get at least 2 packs, but preferably more.
Muhodo trying to steal some extra deer. Grand Theft Venison as he gets 1. So I guess he does get across the other side to get some. That's pretty fun. That's a big win from Muhodo. Given how far he had to go to get that, like that's pretty huge. Getting any kind of advantage over the Malians is going to help pay dividends. That one deer carcass.
Yeah, Muhodo is going to beat his opponent to Castle Age by a massive margin, though, and this is going to be an interesting change of pace. We talked about this. He needs to be the one dictating the tempo of the game. And one thing that he could do to really quickly leverage Castle Age is to yoink the relics with the Warrior Monks. It would be such a massive boost to his resource income. And remember, SortOf has yet to start building any cattle ranches. He's still in that transitional phase of the Malian economy where he's kind of vulnerable to a lot of aggression, and he doesn't really have the ability to spam units just yet.
Yeah, he's got a window there that he can make something happen. High trade house going up right now. See a Donzo spear skirmish going on. That Donzo's gonna die. Trying to get onto the house and trying to burn the passive gold buildings there. But in come the Jav throwers just like that. I saw is that an archery range being built by Muhodo there? I wonder if we see some horse archers being built. I bet that'd be the play. But then again, I don't know if you'd want to do that into Jav throwers, right? And I guess they're slow, but it doesn't seem like it'd be wonderful. Maybe just regular archers. But again, the Jav throwers kind of counter both.
Now, I'm not the biggest fan of the man-at-arms play here. I think the big problem you have with the man-at-arms, it's a good start, but it's going to take a long time to build up. He's actually going Cav Archers, which...
He is going Cav Archers. Interesting. That's an interesting choice against Malians, because Donzos can throw their spears, and then you've also got Jav throwers, which don't they both counter horse archers?
Donzos is a weird proposition, because after you throw your javelin, you have to actually close distance. But javelins would definitely just make minced meat out of the Cav Archers. And Cav Archers are expensive, so you have to be careful with them. In general, I think this is my biggest criticism towards Muhodo's comp. He's got Cav Archers and Man-at-Arms. Both of those are brutally expensive units for an economy that's not super powerful just yet. And I think we're seeing signs of this. Barely any Men-at-Arms, barely any Horse Archers coming out there. This is definitely not going to be a critical mass that's enough to push the enemy base with.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. We've seen both players now. We were kind of wondering if they would just take their own packs and call it good. Both players have actually robbed the other of about half of their deer pack. You kind of wondered, it would have been more efficient for them just to, gentleman's agreement, take their own. But instead, they've each taken like one or two from the other side, despite the incredible distance to do that. I think it's very funny as these players both gear up for the age. Muhodo's definitely age 3, but SortOf is kind of a long way there. He's going to be another minute before he gets the food for it. He's floating in gold, though. See Men-at-Arms here. They could do pretty good here, but the Jav throwers do a lot of high base damage, so he doesn't want to take the engagement because he's just outnumbered.
Yeah. He doesn't have any blacksmith upgrades on them. So, like, sure, these are Castle Age units, but at the end of the day, you're being outnumbered very heavily. He's waiting for the Horse Archers to show up, but while this is happening, SortOf is catching up on the Castle Age timing. And I think the worrisome detail here for Muhodo is the relics. He has one relic secured, and a second one's going to be on the way home very soon, while he's losing map control. I just feel like, again, Men-at-Arms plus Horse Archers is way too expensive to sustain in early Castle.
Yeah, it feels like it's an interesting choice. I kind of like the Men-at-Arms, but then again, I wonder if he'd have been more effective just going for, if he wanted a heavy unit, just going for the Lancers. Or sorry, to go for the Knights. Like Knight Archer feels like a more natural comp for Roos. Even though you've got to deal with the Donzos and Jav throwers, I feel like you've just got the benefit of mobility becomes yours then. Obviously, the Horse Archers are pretty mobile, but they just feel, for how expensive they are, they feel kind of squishy. Especially against Donzos and Javs.
Yeah. Horse Archer is such a weird unit. Under certain circumstances...
They're not any gold. They don't cost any gold, so you just need the wood and food. You can produce a good number. They're just squishy. My thing is they just don't work well in main engagements. Like they can't.
It's not a frontline unit. And this is why I love the walls from SortOf. Horse Archers work best when you can just roam the map and hit the backline and just avoid direct engagements. Walls are really bad against... walls are really bad for Horse Archers because they don't even have the torching power to get through them. Walls straight up block Horse Archers and they cannot do anything about it.
Yeah, we see the full cow boom coming up now as well. They can't even torch the wall. They just got to kind of shoot it and poke at it with their arrows. Like, if they could get back there and raid, that'd be great, but there's not a whole lot to raid for Muhodo to even find. It's buildings he needs to be taken care of. And the Horse Archers, you see here, they're just getting picked off by 6 Javs at a time.
And Javs aren't very expensive. So that's the big thing here for Muhodo. Horse Archers are very expensive for this fight. Having said that, 10 Men-at-Arms and 18 Horse Archers is no pushover. Second range defense upgrade coming in. Actually, that's just the first one here for Muhodo. Castle Age on the way for SortOf. He's trying to get some Musafati warriors into the mix as well, but I feel like Muhodo is reaching that critical mass where he could push this, especially once the range defense upgrade comes in.
Yeah, the tricky thing is when is it going to get in? It's got another time. He's getting kited in the meantime. Musafati are great for the men-at-arms, but the horse archers will deal with those very easily. Now they're in and finally got in through the base. Those scouts pulling their weight with the torches, looking for some kills in the back, looking to maybe even sit on that relic. All the upgrades in the world coming in for sort of at the moment. And that is, there's a lot of men-at-arms now. The high base damage that the Javs do, those things are going to carry, and then the sofas behind, or the Musafati behind.
How did these guys get through? Wait a...
the torch, they torched through the
yeah,
the wall.
I was gonna say that. Like, I love the addition of the scouts from Muhodo to this, because it really was the scouts who opened that wall, and this is how you use horse archers. You run circles around the enemy, and SortOf has a very slow moving army. All you gotta do is run circles around them and try to pick off villagers left and right.
Yeah, and picking off the Musafati is a great idea, because that's the kind of the one scary thing that your men-at-arms with the ranged upgrades are worried about. However, he's got to be careful not to get trapped and have to take a fight here. Again, horse archers, they just can't stand and fight. They have to be moving.
Oh, it's not fully walled, though.
And he's getting flanked. Not fully walled, but he does have jabs in front to cut him off a little bit. And he's diving in, trying to meet back with the main mass. Men-at-arms now getting onto the front line. They are dropping like flies, though.
Yeah, it's... Some idol... He yoinks the relic from the corner, though. I think he wanted to yoink it through the opening that was made, but it was re-walled by SortOf in time. So it's going to be 4 relics for Muhodo. Still, at the end of the day, 4 relics. He also captured 1 sacred site. He's capturing the second one. So, at the very least, he has gotten himself a really nice boost in terms of economy. And he's slowly escalating the number of horse archers. It's a unit that increases in value exponentially as you build up the numbers. So 23 horse archers, 40 men-at-arms, it's getting into a composition that is starting to be scary for SortOf.
Yeah, men-at-arms are not too scary when there's just a couple of them when you have a lot of the javelin throwers, but there does reach that critical mass where the jav throwers eventually, you keep trying to mass them, they start overkilling stuff as well. They've got a lot of high base damage, but in big engagements, the men-at-arms will start coming through, and if they ever get on that line, they're going to do a lot better than the javs will. But the Musafati are kind of a problem, but again, if the horse archers can just pinpoint those, it's a pretty even game right now. And of course, both players, it's kind of fun, both players getting quite a bit of passive gold. SortOf obviously getting a little bit more as Malians excel at that, but you can't discount Muhodo's passive gold generation from both the hunting cabins and the landmark.
I, however, love very much the walls from Muhodo. Musafati is nasty to fight against. They are reasonably fast and they can stealth, so he doesn't want to get surprised by a bunch of Musafati on his wood line. And I love how he's leveraging the map control he has. He has gotten the boar, he's getting the sacred sites, and we talked about this. He needs to be the one dictating the tempo of the game, and I think he's doing just that. Poison arrow archers now coming in for SortOf, though. Those are just so versatile and useful. If anything, though, I don't think... Yeah.
Stealth surround on the men-at-arms. They're going to drop immediately as they just kind of surround them and say, "Sorry, sir, we are closed for the day," and they all drop. And I was worried about just sending a couple. He's got a lot of those Musafati. The stealth being used right there as the men-at-arms basically have years of academy trading wasted.
And I was thinking about the poison arrows here, and I think Muhodo is in big trouble. Because, in general, foot archers will just annihilate cav archers. That is how the meta is. Foot archers are designed to deal with cav archers, especially when you have jav throwers accompanying you as well. But when you add poison arrows on top of that, they become really good against armored units like men-at-arms as well. And I just feel like Muhodo's army is something that gets hard countered exclusively by poison arrow archers. When you also have Musafati and javelins supporting them, I just don't think this is a matchup that Muhodo can really fight into.
Yeah, I worry long term. I mean, poison arrow is such a great tech, and it reaches the point where if he gets enough archers, they'll start just shredding down the men-at-arms too. You know, like they'll just counter everything he's got. And the military numbers, SortOf's got the numbers right now. Muhodo doesn't. And again, we've been saying it this entire time, horse archers cannot stand and fight. They cannot be a front line, and they really don't like taking big engagements like this either. Like they kind of like hit and run tactics mostly. We do see some good raids from SortOf. Again, he's done a good job of doing both games now, of just getting some cav in the back line, getting into the base, and just kind of adding some vill kills. We see it's 3-1 now as he's just adding some in. The men-at-arms trying to clean that up. they don't counter those very well, but they've got the numbers, but they're not going to be able to chase them down either. Horse archers taking out religious unit. And it just feels like SortOf is just kind of all over the map at the moment. Ooh,
Yeah, it's...
Javthor is taking on the siege. That's not... I feel like Springolds are in a really weird spot in this meta nowadays, but it doesn't seem like they're going to do very well here. More villagers going down as they run for the town center.
I think
Those
we've
walls.
reached a critical point. That's the problem here for Muhodo. An untouched Malian player with a full cattle, passive gold income, and you gotta credit Muhodo. He managed to pick up most of the relics. He really, I think, maxed out everything that he could have done in terms of securing map control and getting, benefit from that. But it doesn't change the fact that Malians were untouched for so long, and now we're getting to the stage where it's all about spamming units, as it has always been with Malians. Once you get the cow boom going, once you have the gold income from the pit mines, all you have to do is just spam units.
I almost wish, and I know it's such a risky call to do this against Malians because they've got those stealth Musafati, but I almost kind of wish instead of Springolds, Muhodo went for some Mangonels instead. I feel like that may be a bit more useful here. But regardless, he's just got Sofa in his base, just charging everything down. And when you're getting harassed up front, losing fights, and you're getting raided in the back, it's going to be a recipe for disaster, as SortOf is just taking control of this game 100%. 2 town centers for Muhodo, so that if he could ever stabilize, he can maybe try to match the eco a bit more. But man, 1,600 food a minute for SortOf, next to 600 for Muhodo. That right there is the story, I think, of just the fact that SortOf can do this all day.
That's the problem. That is the problem for Muhodo. Once you get to the critical mass of the Malians, and I do feel like they're a little, like, I don't want to say OP. I'm really cautious about using that word. But every single competitive game I see with Malians, the recipe seems to be the same. Once you get to mid-Castle Age, that Malian economy is just extremely difficult to punish. It's only 65 villagers you're looking at. Even if Muhodo launched a counterattack and killed a bunch of villagers, that's not where most of the resource income for SortOf comes from. And when you have such a steady resource income, you can just spam units like he's doing right now.
Yeah, SortOf is just playing exceptionally well and playing to the meta, and it feels OP, and it might be a little overtuned, but in the hands of SortOf especially, he is just making it work super well. Big engagement here. Springolds trying to get some value. Horse Archer's right behind. He does have a lot of men-at-arms frontlining, but they are quickly getting poisoned down as we see the big mosh pit of fighting going on. Horse Archer's trying to fight. Springolds getting popped one by one. And it just looks like SortOf just has the advantage. It's really kind of dead even on military at the moment. 63 to 46, pretty close. But the front line, if the front line can hold, these horse archers are doing a pretty good job. Here comes some Sofas in the back line looking for the Springolds. They're going to get a couple, and they're all going to be gone. And it feels like the reinforcements for SortOf coming in. And I don't know, the village is trying to come in to repair, but there's almost nothing to repair. They kind of just go somewhere else. There's 3 TCs now for Muhodo, but his army is just getting pushed back slowly. All he's got is some horse archers and crossbows left. The range, the jabs, picking them off one by one, and this game is looking like it's going to be over. It's 16 military to 38. Big engagement, but SortOf on top, still in the base, still picking stuff down.
The Springolds were so confused across the fight. I felt like they were trying to target individual small units. Once again, SortOf did a good job splitting his army, and I just felt like they weren't a factor for so long. They had to pull all the way back, and I mean, they were shooting at Sofas. Springolds will not really be killing your Sofas out there. And behind this, there are 33 villager kills on the side of SortOf. So while all of this was happening, villagers were lost. Muhodo is down by 12. He does have 2 TCs, but I mean, look at SortOf. I think he's going to age with the Fortress of the Huntress dropped in the enemy base.
Yeah, Muhodo's got 3 TCs now, but he's just never going to get the time to enjoy the benefit of that.
Okay, he's playing so conservative.
Yeah, so he could have been way more aggressive with that. He could have made a statement and just plopped it down. I think he's only got 28 military units, but all the sacred sites, you know, 2/3 of the map are his.
Oh yeah, I don't blame him. Like I think.
I mean, this is honestly the smart choice. Yeah, don't throw the game. This is a smart choice. Like, there's no real reason. I mean, he could have made a statement, but he doesn't have the big enough military. He knows that he doesn't need to do this. Muhodo just needs time. If he could just get time to build his eco up, he can maybe make something happen. Because I think Imperial Age, Rus would win. The problem is he's never going to get there. And obviously Imperial is sort of now has gotten to that point, but Muhodo, he needs not only to boom his eco, then go Imperial. And that's like, you can't do both, you know? And so sort of just, man, look at all those vills on gold, building the pit mine and just taking all the treasure of the earth for his own. That was a cheeky decap of the sacred site there by the one lone horseman, the lone rider of Muhodo, trying to, you know, save the Kievan Rus. But their hopes rely on a lot of time being bought, and I just don't know that he has it.
Yeah, I love the second DC here. If there is any way to recover, it's going to be through that. The problem is that now he's down by an age, and again, every moment you do not hit the Malian economy is just going to soar past you. That is the reality. And if you're SortOf, you're more than happy just leveraging all the map control. He's taking all the sacred sites, so he could start a timer. He gets the passive gold income from that as well. And I think he's just waiting for that opportunity to launch a push with an Imperial Age army. Now, if there is anything for SortOf, it's the lack of food that's a little problematic. It's kind of hindering his ability to build up his numbers. Population isn't looking super good right now for him.
That seems so ironic with the full cow boom. The funny thing is that when you reach an Imperial Age economy, even the full cow boom only gets you so far. He's getting 1,300 food a minute, and he's still hungry. Still needs more. He's got tons of gold, though, so at most, he can even just sell some off if he really needed to. One thing that Muhodo's done well is he's reset the sacred site timer by decapping that site. So he's given himself at least a chance to have more time, but the problem is, again, SortOf can just win this militarily, I feel like. It's 3 TCs to 2, so Muhodo could build up an eco lead, but he's still behind. I mean, he lost 35 vills during all of that commotion. And you're down a lot. I don't know. I mean, he's got the relics, which is a nice help. I mean, that's kind of keeping him somewhat in this. Like, there's a small chance that SortOf could blow this. There's a small chance that he could throw it all away, and maybe in a really good timing, Muhodo can get Imperial Age, get those Springolds going. 18 of them now, 19 as the 19th one pops out. The question is time. Will he get enough time? There are some gaps. I think he's about to chop through some of those walls. SortOf is going to tear through down one anyways and just say, nah, we're going to do this regardless. If Muhodo can hold this and not lose too much eco, there's a shot. The problem is there's nowhere for them to run.
Yeah, that's the problem. I think the problem for Muhodo is that he's down one age. If SortOf was still in castle, maybe there was a little slim chance, but realistically, Muhodo is pinned inside his base, one age down. I think he's doing the right thing. He's actually on 3 TCs now. And if he can get up to Imperial, there is a slim chance that he can turn this around. But there is a group of units on the back of his eco, and he definitely cannot suffer any more casualties. It's plain and simple. He's already quite a bit behind. Any more delays will just allow SortOf to boom up to max pop and finish him off.
Yeah, the military count's what's scaring me. 67 to 40. It's like, it's close. If Muhodo can get some really clutch plays, he's got a lot of mangonels and Springolds. If he can get some clutch plays, but again, if he loses any more eco, he's trying to build up eco and get the edge so we can get into Imperial Age. Everything he has is being built in the military, and currently all the upgrades in the world have come in for SortOf. Here comes the first engagement in the back line. So now Muhodo's aware that that group has gotten in, trying to keep him at bay. They don't get any damage done, thankfully, for Muhodo. So he continues to survive on. It just feels like SortOf is going to be able to pull it out, though. I just don't see how he doesn't fumble this bag as the charge comes in on the tower. Vills have to flee for the hills. Siege popping out at the most worst inopportune time. In come the spears trying to save things. Now, the choke points could help him here. The siege trying to gather up by the TC to fight. SortOf's going to back off before they get the chance to shoot, though. Does SortOf run the risk of waiting too long?
I think he's
that
fine.
siege is looking dangerous. The choke points, at least, if he can hold on, because he's got a lot of gold back there still. Muhodo can keep churning with the gold if he can just secure that spot right here that we're looking at. Springolds trying to take down the sofa. Spears frontlining, more coming in behind. Mangonel shots, not doing a whole lot, but trying to help out as well as they can. That's a lot of Springolds. Moving out from the base now. Crossbow's taking a couple pot shots. Not much happening though.
It is so weird. I think, again, remember, SortOf has the Sacred Site timer on his side. So in 6 minutes time, Muhodo needs to move out of his base, and he's still behind in deck. SortOf is also making a pivot to Sofa, something that Muhodo has yet to see. And when you're so siege heavy, only 10 spearmen, 14 crossbows, okay, Sofas are shown, these are Imperial Age Sofas. They're ready to just take out all the Springolds, and Muhodo, 23 Springolds out there. But his base is wide open, so he's just getting ripped apart from all directions.
Yeah, it's... And SortOf is just... Look at the Vil kills. He's killed 71. Muhodo should have 140 villagers, and half of them have been slain. And once the wood lines start running out, and he's already over-chopped in many ways, the walls are really just decorations at this point.
Yeah, this is so... Oh no, once you over-chop that, more villagers will fall. There is nowhere to go for Muhodo, and he doesn't have any mobility. 23 Springolds may be something that SortOf is unwilling to push into, but
it is
23
formidable.
Springolds won't help
but...
you. Like, they're so slow, they just cannot help you when you're raided from all directions.
And that's the trick, is at this point, Muhodo just is wanting the big fight. He thinks he probably could take a big fight, and maybe he could. He's got a lot of siege and a good choke point. He could do pretty well. The problem is SortOf's never going to let that happen. He's just going to keep raiding. He's got all day. He's got 4.5 minutes to win this. And he's just chilling. There's no, as long as he just keeps his opponent stuck in his base, there's nothing that Muhodo can do. $82 now at villager kills. The amount of war crimes SortOf has committed is becoming obscene. Springold's trying to take care of this little raid. He'll take care of it. But again, at what cost, right? Like, where's his avenue for victory?
By the way, the monastery is being harassed at the back. Remember that part of the resource income that's still there for Muhodo is in the form of relics. If he loses that monastery, loses the relics, it's just gonna get even worse. It's actually remarkable we're seeing a game with 23 Springolds in there. The population is still rather close, but at this point, Muhodo is replacing every single unit in his army with a Springold.
Yeah, and we see the Musafati gunners coming out. They're not going to be happy to see all those mangonels and Springolds out there. The Sofa just trying to get more done. But, you know, at this point, all the Sofa and SortOf need to do is just delay, keep him in his base. Like you said, as long as he keeps poking on either side, it's kind of like what Napoleon used to do. You know, no one would want to fight Napoleon, so they would just back away whenever they saw Napoleon. So whenever SortOf sees the Napoleon, you know, the big group of Springolds, he just backs away and pokes on the other side.
Well, we might be getting close to a Waterloo here, because Muhodo needs to move. He needs to decap a Sacred Site, and he finally needs to move out to open ground. Like, if this thing works, it's going to be one of the most ridiculous games I've ever seen. 25 Springolds is no pushover.
No,
and
it's not. It's a lot to have, and
Is there a chance here?
I mean, if he decaps a site, then what? Villagers trying to build a keep right now. Springolds are just destroying everything. There's a lot here. Musafati gunners and archers trying to do something. The keep's not going up. The cannon emplacements are taking care of the siege slowly. Sofa getting onto the mangonels now. Feels like this was a brave last attempt. All the vills coming in to fight, and that will do it as Waterloo happens for Muhodo here. The Napoleon of Springolds cannot take the fight.
For a moment, I got scared that I was going to look like a fool, just bashing the full Springold strat, and then this whole thing working out, but it kind of ended how I expected it to end. Once you leave the safety of your base, it was just not something that he could keep alive. Clean games by SortOf. I think in both of these games, he just felt very opportunistic. Every single time Muhodo gave something to him, he took it, and he ran with it.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Vil kills. Eco 125 to 1. I mean, it's hard to win a game when you only kill one eco unit of your opponent. And that really is going to stir the game. Now, obviously, Malians the villagers aren't as important as some of the buildings and the cows and stuff. But still, 125, like, that is an astronomically high number. And sort of just, you know, kept Muhodo away from Imperial Age the entire time. He was stuck in Castle Age, even up until the very end.
Yeah, again, I feel like this goes back to the conversation we had at the beginning. the absolute reality is that when you let the Malians to build up their cattle, get all the pit mines going, it's extremely difficult to stop them because they really become a spam unit type of a civilization. And then again, sort of this critical fight, this was probably what decided the outcome of the game. It was very obvious beyond this point that Muhodo isn't recovering. And I highlighted this when this fight was happening. These Springolds, look at the Springolds, how they are virtually inactive. They're trying to hit some sofas. I think that's part of the reason why this fight went badly for Muhodo. The Springolds didn't really contribute much, especially in the second portion of the fight.
No, it felt like Muhodo's composition just wasn't on the money, right? Like, even when he was pushing out earlier, we mentioned that those wood lines could become very problematic for SortOf at the beginning of the game. I still think he could have done something at that if he'd have built and played more aggressive up front. But Men-at-Arms just got taken to bits. He just never could get a good critical mass. I wonder if maybe Knights and more mobility could have helped better. Maybe going for the Knights and maybe archers of his own. Or just something different, because the Men-at-Arms and horse archers just felt like it never quite was realized its potential of what he wanted to do with that. And here we see that final fight. I mean, all the Springolds in the world, but no front line. If there was some kind of front line, that could have been formidable. But with nothing to tank the damage up front, the villagers get pulled and GG is going to be called.
Well,
Tough
that let's set a 2-0 for SortOf. He's definitely one of the favorites to qualify this weekend. He is going to be awaiting a tough opponent, though. If all goes according to the books, CSO, well, he's fighting against Waffle, you never know. But CSO is the favorite of that series, and SortOf versus CSO in the round of 16 would definitely be a banger of a match. A big one for SortOf. Recently, CSO has been outstanding in 1v1s. If SortOf can win that, I think he's going to be the favorite to potentially qualify from this part of the bracket. But